right, welcome back to the channel. So here we go again. Jaron Boots Ennis, through his team, specifically his father, BOZY Ennis, has called out Terence Crawford for a fight next. Asked specifically for people to push for the fight. So let's get to pushing and talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. Before I get into the meat of the video, please make sure that you hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. Love this conversation because, you know, I can be petty sometimes. Terence Crawford has been called out by Jaron Boots Ennis's team again. Terence Crawford is the WBO welterweight champion of the world, and Jaron Ennis is high. I'm not sure what he's ranked at in the WBO, but he's highly ranked in the WBO. I think he might actually be number 2. I think he's number 3 in the IBF. So I'm pretty sure he's number 2 in the WBO, something like that. But as a ranked opponent for Terence Crawford, and somebody that Terence Crawford is able to fight on a voluntary basis. On the channel, YSM Sports Media, shout out to them. Those guys get great interviews out there with Boots Ennis, with BOZY Ennis, and actually with a lot of great fighters. So if you guys make sure, go check out that channel. It's definitely worth subscribing to. I definitely support them. Really great work. But they interviewed Jaron Ennis' father, and they asked him very specifically, do you want to fight Terence Crawford next? And BOZY Ennis says, yes, we would like to have that fight next. Also, they continue with the conversation and say, hey, man, there's really nobody out there for Terence Crawford to fight, you know, that is a better fight than Boots. And they start walking through who all the other people are in the welterweight division that he could fight. Virgil Ortiz has an up-and-coming fight. Keith Thurman has an up-and-coming fight. Errol Spence Jr. has an up-and-coming fight. There's nobody else in that division that is a more scintillating and a more deserving fight right now at the welterweight division than Jaron Boots Ennis. And Jaron Boots Ennis said that he is willing to fight. And this is his father talking, who is his trainer. I do believe he might also be his manager, specifically saying that they want to fight him next. Now, when they were asked whether or not they thought that that fight was actually going to happen, very telling. He said, nah, I don't see that happening. More than likely, Terence Crawford is going to try to go fight somebody else, somebody that has a bigger name, somebody that has bigger money, than Jaron. And he's like, yeah, you know, the politics in boxing, they're going to try to stand in the way of us getting that fight with Terence Crawford, right? All of which, by the way, I do agree with. I do not believe Terence Crawford is going to fight Jaron Boots Ennis next. However, I think that it is incumbent upon, and here's where I'm being a little bit petty, but it's the truth. It is incumbent upon everybody when Jaron Ennis said that he was going to try to be the mandatory for Errol Spence Jr. for that IBF belt. All of the people that jumped out there and talked about Errol Spence Jr. hiding from Jaron Ennis, make sure you keep, what's that word you guys use a lot of the time? Keep that same energy when it comes to calling for Terence Crawford to fight Jaron Ennis. Because what BOZY Ennis is saying is 100% correct. That is the best challenger that he could have at 147 pounds. There's nobody else. If Keith Thurman is not available to fight, Sean Porter retired because he just beat Sean Porter. Errol Spence Jr. is fighting Yordenis Ugas. Yordenis Ugas is fighting Errol Spence Jr. Who else is there? Adrian Brawner, I guess, is at 147 pounds. Virgil Ortiz also has a fight that he is fighting, already has a fight date. The only of all of the top welterweights that I know and I can name off the top of my head at 147 pounds, the only 2 guys that do not have a fight date right now are Terence Bud Crawford and Jaron Boots Ennis. Seems to me that if people are not being biased, because I'm telling you, This is a non-biased channel, as much as people don't like it, because I will tell you both sides of it. I told you when Errol Spence Jr. was fighting Terence Crawford, when people were saying that Errol was ducking boots, I was like, look, yeah, if that's the situation, he should fight him. If he has to fight him, more than likely he's not going to do it because he's aiming for the bigger money fight. So I didn't see that there was a high likelihood of him fighting Jaron Ennis. But if Jaron Ennis had become his mandatory, or if he didn't have anybody else, hey man, Jaron Ennis is definitely worthy of an Errol Spence Jr. fight. There's nobody else out there that I can see other than Terence Crawford, other than the Ugas, who have belts, that are better fighters at the 147-pound division, that are better fighters at 147 pounds than Jaron Ennis is. So the shoe is on the other foot now. They are without a doubt saying that they would fight Terence Crawford next if Terence Crawford would make that fight. They're asking people to get into the media and call for that fight. So I'm quite sure that all of the people that are on Errol Spence Jr., when they thought Errol Spence Jr. didn't have the Ugas fight in front of him, right, was saying, oh, he's trapped now. He's either going to fight Yordenis Ugas, or he's either got to fight Terence Crawford, or he's got to fight Jaron Ennis. Which one's it going to be? Well, like I said, it's an unbiased channel. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If Terence Crawford doesn't have anybody else to fight, then that same logic that people were using for Errol Spence Jr. should be applied to Terence Crawford, and people should be calling for Terence Crawford to take that fight. Now, is there a high likelihood that Terence Crawford is going to take that fight? Absolutely, positively not. He more than likely is going to do what every other top fighter in the welterweight division is going to do relative to Jaron Ennis, and that is let Jaron Ennis fight lower level guys and force himself into a mandatory position where they may or may not take that fight. Jaron Ennis is a special fighter by according to any and everybody that has seen that guy fight, that is not just purely hating on the dude. Terrific fighter. He can fight on the inside, fight on the outside. He's very, very big. He's very, very powerful fighter. That is a dangerous fight for anybody that gets in the ring with him, whether you're Errol Spence, Yordenis Ugas, Terence Crawford, Sean Porter, does not matter. Butiev, he'll beat Butiev. He'll beat Stanosis. The only guys that I think actually got a chance to beat Jaron Ennis are Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. Now, how do I actually think the fight will turn out between the two? Right now, like I said, I'm going to give respect to the older fighter, the more experienced fighter, the guy with a lot of tricks up his sleeve, and say Terence Crawford can probably find a way to pull out that fight because he's more experienced than Jaron Ennis. But I will tell you this, do not be surprised if it is a scenario, if they were to get in the ring where Jaron Ennis pulled that fight out, because Jaron Ennis is extremely confident. Like he said about Terence Crawford before, he feels like he's better at Terence Crawford than everything. Hits harder, faster, bigger, smarter, all of that stuff. Jaron Ennis is that special type of fighter, but he would have to actually prove it against Terence Crawford for me to say, okay, yeah, I'll say that he'll win. I'll give Terence Crawford more than that respect, but I hope people, again, give the respect to Terence Crawford and say, hey, man, that's a young buck, very good fight, very exciting fight. I would pay for the fight. You know, obviously Jaron's not a household name yet, but neither is Terence Crawford or any of the other guys that Terence Crawford would fight, even though I will admit that Terence Crawford is more known than Jaron Ennis, but any other guy that he's fighting is not as good a matchup. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section, and with that, I'm out. Peace.